Well, hey there, and welcome back inside Seller Central. Now, today we're going to be talking about creating your listing and the things that you're going to need in advance of doing that. By this point, you should have gone through the last video and went ahead and already set up your Seller Central account. You should have your bank information and all of those kinds of things. If for any reason you haven't done that yet, please go back and do that now, just so that once you create your listing, you'll be ready to go live. Okay, so to go ahead and create your listing, the first thing you're going to do is come up here into your inventory tab. Go ahead, and if you're going to do a single product at a time, which is what we're doing here today, you're just going to click on add a product. Now, Amazon is going to ask you to search by your product name or UPC here first. Since you are creating a private label product, we don't need to do that. We know it's not already listed. So just go ahead and hit create a new product. The next thing Amazon is going to do is they're going to ask you to define a category for your product. Now, this is one of the most important things that you're going to do as far as conversion rate optimization and some of those kinds of things. There's a delicate balance that a lot of sellers struggle with between picking the correct category and a category that they can get the #1 tag for. Many of you may have seen the #1 bestseller banner that will show up next to your product. I'm of the opinion that I would rather be in the correct category, just for the small percentage of people who actually do search by category, and if they're already in, say, kitchen and dining and they perform a search, you're more likely to come up if you're listed correctly. And I'm not a fan of listing a garlic press and maybe something like shoes, just because I know I can get the #1 bestseller badge, because long term, we're not building things correctly, and if Amazon comes and cracks down on that, there's no telling what they may do to your business. Now, chances are they're not going to shut you down and kick you off, but they may disable your listing for a couple days, which isn't something you want. If there are multiple categories that make sense for your product, once you perform the search here, feel free to choose based on your own criteria, but personally, I like to find something that's the best fit. So you can scroll through and try to filter down by category, but I've found that the easiest way to do it is just to use the category search function that they have here. So just for today's example, we're going to go with the standard garlic press. So we're just going to type in garlic press here. And then go ahead and press the find category button. And what Amazon will do is they will search their catalog and try to find any categories and subcategory combinations that are going to make sense for the keyword that you typed in there. Now, if you look on the right-hand side of the search page here, you're going to see the categories that Amazon thinks might make sense for that product. The top one here is garlic presses, and if you look directly underneath that, you'll see that it says found in home and kitchen, or home and garden, kitchen, and then kitchen tools. Then the subcategory below that will be garlic presses. So in this case, you would be listed in the home and garden category. You could list in any of these categories, but because we are listing a garlic press, I would suggest using the category that most closely matches the product that you are actually doing, which in this case is the top one here, garlic presses. So go ahead and click on that link. And what will happen then is Amazon will take you directly into the listing creation screen. Now, what you see here can be a little bit intimidating for those of you who haven't done this before. But there's a little trick, and what you'll see here is that anything with the asterisk, this little red asterisk with a grayish circle around it, is a required field. Everything else is optional for your listing, and all that it's going to do is just help you flesh out a little bit more information on the listing itself. Now, when you get to this screen, you should already have crafted your product title, your product description, you should have your images, your keywords, and your descriptions. Personally, I like to have them all in a document, and we'll go ahead and in the download section that goes along with this video, we'll provide you with a pre-formatted document that will have all of those things. I like to just copy and paste them in here. It eliminates spelling errors, it eliminates grammar errors when you're writing sentences, because you've already had the chance to look at it in something like Microsoft Word or Excel and run a spell check on it. So let's go ahead and create this listing now. The product name is going to be your product title. Now you'll see here that this has a maximum of 250 characters in the home and garden kitchen tools space. There are some categories that you'll find that have shorter character requirements. and it's something that we've been hearing. I haven't witnessed it personally, but it's something we've been hearing that they are planning on shortening a little bit. So we're just going to go ahead and flesh this out a little bit today. So, world's best garlic press, right? So now we have a title in there. We don't need to worry about the manufacturer, the model number, any of those kinds of things. If you want, you can put your brand name in here because you are technically the manufacturer, right? Your model number, you don't need to worry about that. Anything on here that does not have an asterisk, unless you are planning on doing variations or you have multiple things in a package, you don't need to worry about that. Now, none of those things other than what's labeled with the asterisk are required, but if you do have something like multiple units in a package, or you have multiple sizes and you'd like to start to differentiate them, here's where you would start to do that. So you'll see the next spot down here is brand name. And what you'll see here is that this is limited to 50 characters. Now, what you saw up here was the product name. That's what's going to appear as your product title. Your brand name is simply your brand, right? And that's the brand that you decided on back in module 2 as your overarching brand. So in this case, we'll just go with garlic goodies, right? Because everything that we're doing is garlic press related. The last thing that you will see on this page is the spot for the UPC or EAN number. And you're going to want to go ahead and put in the UPC that you created. I'm just making one up because we're not creating a real listing. And it looks like Amazon doesn't like that I did that, so we'll just go ahead and skip that step for now. Now, we're not going to cover this in this video because most of you won't have product variations just from the start. But this is the place in the Amazon backend where you will start to create your variations. If you are listing more than one product under the same listing, meaning you have a parent-child relationship, you're selling a 3-pack, a 5-pack, and a 10-pack, or you're selling things that are multiple sizes or colors, you want to select your variation theme here. Otherwise, it's a pain in the butt to try to get Amazon Seller Central to come back and help you fix your listing when you're done. So if you are planning on bringing in different colors, different sizes, any of those kinds of things, different package quantities, you're going to want to select the way in which you plan to vary your products at this point. Now, all of the steps moving forward, if you do choose to create a variation, will be the same. You'll just have to do them over the different variations, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we go to the next screen here. So the next screen that you will come to is the Amazon offer screen. And this is where you're going to put in your price and all of those things related to physically creating the offer that you have on Amazon. The first thing you need to do here is select a condition. For all of you who are private labeling something, your condition will always be new. If you're reselling or doing retail arbitrage or anything like that, you may have to pick a different condition. But for everybody who is private labeling, your condition will always be new. The next thing you need to do is fill in your price, and you'll note that because, again, it has that little red asterisk next to it. If you guys are following the criteria that Scott and I laid out, this will be somewhere between 19 and 45, but anything that you put in this box is what will show up as your standard sales price on Amazon.com. Now, we can always come back and list a sale price and start that and drop it later, but this is the price that will be up when your listing goes live. The next required field that you see on here is for quantity. Now, because we're doing Amazon FBA, we don't need to fill that out. If you're creating a listing and you plan on fulfilling it yourself, you do need to put in here the number of units that you have on hand. But because we're not dealing with inventory, we're not shipping orders, we're not fulfilling orders, we're using Amazon to do that, we don't need to worry about this field. And what you'll see down here at the very bottom of the screen is a little tab called Shipping Method. And if you click, I want to ship and provide customer service for the items if they sell, it will take care of the quantity field that you saw above there. And then it'll pop up with a little note, and it'll just say, Amazon fulfills orders for this item. Your item will be available for sale when Amazon receives it. So until Amazon has received your order, your listing will not be able to sell anything, which makes sense because Amazon can't fulfill it, right? That's just there for you to know. Obviously, that's not really something we need to worry about. It's just there as a great little piece of information. The next thing that we're going to upload is our images. Now, I suggest utilizing as many of these images as you can. just to give your customers extra things to look at. Extra images always help with conversion rate. They help with giving people an idea of what the product looks and feels like. I know that sounds kind of weird, but because the customer can't physically touch the product before they buy it, the more experiential feelings that we can give to people, the more likely they are going to be to buy the product. So there are some restrictions on the images. The product must fill at least 85% of any image that you take, and the main image that you upload must have just the product, whatever you're sending them, and a plain white background. There are not as heavy of restrictions on the other images. You can do usage images, some of those kinds of things, images with models I know that we've talked about in the past. But that main image has to be just the product on a plain white background. We also suggest that you make the images at least 1,000 pixels by 500 pixels. The bigger, the better in the case of Amazon. And the reason that we suggest that is because if they are at least that size, they will be zoomable on Amazon, meaning when you hover the mouse over them on that Amazon product page, the customer will be able to actually see the blown up version of the image. They'll be able to zoom and pan around on that image. Amazon also suggests that you use JPEG. I agree with that. The image file doesn't really matter much. They accept JPEG, TIFF, and GIF files, but JPEG is generally the easiest, and if you're having a photographer take your product photos and you're not doing it yourself, it's really easy to get them from anybody that's a photographer. So once you've filled out your product photos, go ahead and click the Next button, and this will take you to your basic product description page. Now, you have two fields on this page that you need to fill out, and again, I prefer to copy and paste directly from the document that we'll give you in the download section, but you can feel free to write them in here if that's how you prefer to do this. The first section that you will see here is the key product feature section. This is your bullet point section that will appear on the Amazon product listing page. Each of these 5 lines is limited to 100 characters. So what you want to do is fill these out as much as possible. If you only get to 99 characters, don't worry about it, but try to get to that 100 mark. And what you're going to want to do for the features is describe, actually not features, but benefits. So how is this product going to improve your customers' lives, right? In the case of a garlic press, it's not just a garlic press. It is a way of creating, aromas and scents in the kitchen, as well as improving the flavor of food. So figure out a couple different ways to phrase that and get that in your bullet points. The other thing that you really want to pay attention to in the bullet points are the keywords and the conversion words that your customers are going to be using when they're searching for the product through Amazon. The second field that you see here is your product description. Now, in the kitchen and dining category, this is limited to 2,000 characters, and that includes any formatting that you do. Amazon doesn't accept HTML in the product description field, except for some very basic things like line breaks. There are some ways around that, but it's against terms of service, so if you're considering it, I would highly suggest against it. In the product description field, you're going to want to completely fill that out to that 2,000 character maximum. Now, keep in mind that that includes spaces, and depending on the time that you try to upload it, it may or may not also include those HTML line break tags as well. I've had sometimes when it works and sometimes that it doesn't work with those tags, and so make sure that if you are going to use any styling like line breaks, that you do include all of those characters in that 2,000 character count when you're creating your product description. Again, you're going to want to make this something that is compelling and really appeals to your buyer from a keyword and search perspective, as well as why they need the product in their home and why they should buy yours versus your competition. Right? Once you've pasted those two sections, you can move on to the keywords tab, which is your next screen that you'll see here. Now, this is another place where people tend to get confused because there are multiple fields here. Most of them are not necessary. The platinum keywords field, completely ignore that. That is not for most people who are doing FBA. That is only for people who are part of the Merchant Central program where Amazon is actually retailing your products. What you're looking for here is the second field down, which is your search terms field, right? You see these 5 lines here. Again, this is where you're going to put the keywords that you know people are searching for. Now, Amazon uses a really broad match in their search terms, so you don't have to repeat the words a bunch of times, you don't have to stuff it. Feel free to fill out these search terms with the words that you know are going to be searched for, those words that you identify through some of the keyword research that we did at the beginning, and the words that you used to find the product when you were looking for it originally. As you start to sell and as you start to ramp up on PPC, you'll find some other search terms that you may want to put in here and swap out for some of the ones that may not be converting as well. But get the search terms in here that you found earlier on, and if we need to change them down the road, we can always come back here and do that. The next couple fields here are not mandatory for filling this out, but they do, they do tend to help. I'm not entirely sure how they really play into conversion rate, but I've done some testing filling these fields out and not filling these fields out, and I've tended to find that when I do complete the listing in a way that makes sense and as fully as I possibly can for that product, that those products do tend to convert better. The intended use is the first thing that you will see here. Obviously, if we're talking about a garlic press, it's going to be kitchen, cooking, those kinds of things. Think of this as an additional search terms field, right? Your target audience, who are you trying to sell it to? Are you trying to sell it to everybody that's an adult, everybody with a kitchen? Are you trying to target just women or just men? You can use this field to determine that, and that will help Amazon to show you to the correct buyers. If you choose to, you can create and fill out this other attributes section. Again, it's not necessary, but it does help. You can pick up to 5 things that describe the product outside of what you've already done. So in the case of the garlic press, we would do something like stainless steel, cooking, easy cleaning, some of those kinds of things, just to give us some additional search terms. The subject matter, what's the product about? Again, this doesn't really pertain to the product that we're using here. If we were doing something like a book, it would make a little bit more sense. But in this case, the 2 that Amazon is auto-suggesting, cooking and garlic presses, those make a little bit of sense. And if you want to provide your own terms, you can do that as well. Just keep in mind that you do have a limit of 5 terms in that field. The next section that you'll see here is completely up to you to fill out. And if you've seen some of the more fleshed out listings, you've seen charts and graphs and some of those kinds of things, and you didn't know where they came from, it's from this more details section. Now, again, you don't have to fill any of this out. You can if you choose to. I tend to as much as I can. So in the case of something like a garlic press, there's going to be 1 in the box. Your packaging dimensions are going to be whatever you measure them out to be. Most of these other fields would not apply to us. If you're doing something in electronics or you're doing something in toys, a lot of these fields should be filled out, right? But generally speaking, you don't need to worry about this tab unless you want to come in and just fill out as much information as possible. It's not going to tend to affect your conversion rate very much. So to just get a listing up and to lower your barrier to entry, feel free to ignore this tab entirely. Now, if you have completely filled out your listing and you've met all of the fields that are required at this point, you can hit save and finish. Now, if I hit save and finish, because I have not done that, it will kick me out. And it will tell me that my listing does not meet all of the requirements, and it will tell me what I have missed. And in this case, it won't let me save it until I fill out the price and until I fill out any of the other vital information like the UPC code, right? Once you've done that and you've completed everything that Amazon is asking you to do, when you hit save and finish, it will take you out of this screen and it will take you to the inventory tab, and you will see the smaller version of your product listing there with whatever you uploaded as the main image and a little brief description of exactly what the product is, including the product title. Okay? Now, you do have a little bit of homework at the end of this module, just like we tend to always give you. And what we're going to want you to do is go ahead and download the form that we're giving you to put all of your pertinent product information in. Fill it out with the headline that you've created for your product title, your product description, your bullet points, and your keywords, so that when you come in here to create this listing, you can just copy and paste and everything goes really smoothly. The second thing that we're going to want you to do, obviously, is come in here and create your first product listing. Once you have created your listing, let us know in the Facebook group, and then go ahead and feel free to watch the next video. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to ask.